Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are back to do a first impression tutorial, swatches, and an overview of the brand new Natasha Denona Xenon palette. So this is her new midi palette. Everybody's been talking about it, although there is another palette coming from Huda Beauty, so keep your eyes peeled for a review on that. But this is super cool toned, very icy, silvery, so I'm really interested to dive in and see what I think. So I will have this linked down below, of course, at every retailer you can grab it at. I do also have a coupon code with Natasha Denona to get 15% off your order, so I will put that down below as well. But we're just gonna play around, see what we think, and I'll tell you if I think it's something that you would enjoy or something that you probably would want to pass on. So if you're new here, I hope you stick around and subscribe. I do a ton of makeup content. If you like first impressions or Natasha Denona reviews, give this video a thumbs up, and let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so a little bit about the palette before we get into swatches and the demo. So this is the new Natasha Denona Xenon Midi palette. It retails for $69. It is a limited edition. Now you can get this on her website. You can also get it at Ulta, Sephora, and Beautylish. So this is the packaging. It has like this really cool galactic feel. The actual palette has the same packaging. It has that sort of like starry look. This is made in Italy, and it also has a 24-month shelf life, so that's a good amount of time. So inside you get these shades. Now this is really reminding me of like ColourPop Smoke Show. It's one of those palettes that when you see the promo photos, you're almost like, is that in black and white? Like you can't tell, but this actually is the color story. This is extremely cool toned. I don't see any warmth in here, none. I did see a couple people say that they thought this was like a one-trick pony palette. For having all these shades, they thought that you could really only come up with very similar looks because everything is so similar. So let's go ahead and swatch this and see what we think based upon the swatches. Okay, so hopefully those swatches helped you see a little bit of what you can expect from this palette. Now I wanna jump into an eye look. I wanna use the new Rephr brushes. Rephr just came out with 2 sets of eye brushes. So they have the mini and the maxi set. So I thought those would be really good to use today because the mini is just basically like smaller versions for those of you with small eyes, hooded eyes, and then the maxi is a larger version. And because I feel like we're gonna have to use a lot of brushes, I'm gonna grab those real quick. So here are the Rephr brush sets. You have the maxi, which are larger, and then you have the mini. So I'm just gonna be grabbing from these sets as we do this look, and I will tell you which brush I'm using, but I will link these down below if you're interested. They have so many nice, just really small detail brushes, and I especially enjoy their eye brushes. All right, so I've got you zoomed in. I wanna start off with the dark shade in here. This is called Sposh, and I'm gonna use the 14 mini, and I think this is a cream to powder shade. So I didn't set the lower part of my lid because when I want a lot of depth, a lot of times if you set with powder, you don't get that, I guess, adherability. Is that even a word? I'm keeping this really low, lightly feathering in the middle. This one is translating a little bit blue, at least in person, whereas in the pan, it looks almost like a charcoal black. So just reinforcing that depth. Okay, so I wasn't paying attention and I just went in and dipped without looking, and I dipped into the sparkly shade on accident over that dark shade. I mean, I feel like it's pretty, but that wasn't my intent. So I don't know, I might have to do that to match on this other side. And because I accidentally did that, I thought I dipped into this shade, but I think I actually dipped in to the Snowbow, which has like a little bit of a shift. So I'm just going to apply this to the inner portion. Yeah, that was the shade. I didn't even look. I just sort of dipped in and I was like, ooh, that's really pretty over the black. So I'm just gonna leave that just on the inner corner right now. And I wanna go in next. Actually, I don't know. I think I'm gonna go in with this shade right here, which is like this gunmetal gray. I think I'm gonna use the Rephr 13 Max. And I want to just basically soften the edges. You guys will have to let me know if you're picking this palette up or what you think. Her I Need a Nude palette is my favorite palette she's ever released, just because it's like perfect for my skin tone for every day, but this one is definitely a fun, really cool tone. I feel like cool tones are in right now. This is quite literally one of the coolest tone palettes I've seen. So next I'm gonna jump into Flurry. This one looks a little bit less cool toned than the other light grays in here. And I'm gonna use this to soften the edges even more, which I'm not loving. Okay. Let's go back to, it almost is making it look like not what I'm wanting, almost like a really sheared out blue. So I'm just going back in with that deeper gray. So instead I'm gonna try to mix this deeper gray with Blizzard, and I wanna see if I can get a little bit of softening up here without it turning so blue, although I feel like it really is pulling quite blue. So I am relying mostly on that deeper gray. The other ones are just too light. And then to calm everything down, I'm just gonna go in with my concealer brush that I use to put my eye base on. Okay, now that I blended that good enough, I'm gonna go into Night Sky. This one is a metallic, but it's not one of those crazy high shine. It's more of like a satin. And I'm using the Refer 2 Mini. So I'm just gonna keep this on the outer half of my eye, and then you can go back in and blend. Okay, so for the center of the lid, I'm gonna go in to this shade called Skiff, and I'm gonna use the Refer Maxi 02. I'm gonna try a brush, but I have a feeling that it's not gonna pick up the best. Yeah, I mean it applies, but I am just gonna use my finger. It's really pretty. And I'm just gonna sort of blend this into that deeper shade. This kind of shadow can get chunky, so just be mindful of that. Okay, and then for the inner corner of the lid, I am gonna go in with that Snow Bow, and I'm gonna use the Mini 13 brush. But this shadow seems to really pick up nicely. This one has a very, very slight pink. All right, so I wet my brush. It definitely gives you more bang, but also, again, it can get chunky, so just be mindful. Okay, and then I'm gonna jump back into the palette into that gray shade. I might mix in a little bit of the dark one, but I'm gonna start just with the gray. And I'm just gonna outline and reinforce that cut crease. And then I'm just taking a clean brush, and I'm just gonna really softly try to blend a little bit of this harshness out. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with where we're at right now. I'm gonna go ahead off camera, do my liner, lashes, and then also finish my base. And then we will finish off the lower lash line, go over my first impression, and see what we think about this palette. So I will be back in a little bit. All right, so I am back. I did my makeup. I will link everything that I'm wearing down below in my description box, but I wanna finish off the look. So I'm gonna go in with my Nabla liner in the shade 4. This is my favorite liner to smudge out ever. So I'm just gonna apply this to the waterline, and then I can do a little bit underneath. And then I'm gonna take this really small brush and just lightly buff this out. So next I'm gonna go in to this shade up here, which is Night Sky. I really don't wanna use that first color because that one kept pulling really blue, and I don't want this to end up pulling blue either. I'm just sort of setting over where I just smoked that liner out, and then jumping back in to that gray shade, and I'm just gonna use this right underneath to soften, but also just blend this out. And to add a little bit of sparkle, I'm gonna start out with this really metallic shade. I wet a really small brush, and I just wanna put this on the lower lash line about halfway in. Getting a little bit of fallout, so definitely use your brush wet That is absolutely stunning though. Okay, and I think to finish off, I want to try this shade right here on the inner corner. It's one of those that is a little more flaky, so whoa. Okay, wow. Just wet your brush, and I would say use a natural hair brush. Okay guys, so here's my finished makeup look using the new Natasha Denona Xenon palette. Let me know what you think down below. I saw a couple people use this palette and everything looked really gray on them. I feel like it's pulling very like blue icy on me. Now I do have blue eyes, obviously I have blonde hair, but my thoughts on this palette overall is I had no issues working with it. I think it is absolutely beautiful and super easy to work with, which doesn't surprise me because I do love Natasha's formula. I am in a battle right now with flies, okay? I do not know why, but I came into my studio this morning and there was like 3 flies flying all around and they're landing on my lights, and the buzzing noise is sending me into another dimension. If you guys truly want to know, actually I don't even know if I could show you. I probably would get demonetized. I have a salt toy, think like a Nerf, to get rid of the flies. Ian bought that a while ago and I have it on my desk right now. And if I wouldn't get demonetized, I would show you guys. But when I tell you this fly is taunting me, he's right in front of me, just, you know, rubbing his paws together, and it's really trying me, but I'm trying to get through this video. So if you hear the buzzing, I apologize for that. But back to the palette, it was super easy to use. I didn't struggle with any shades. I thought everything blended beautifully. I do have some qualms with it, which would be the fact that I did feel like I was struggling to find a mid-tone shade, mid-tone shade to blend out the deep shades. So in here you have this deep shade, this one, and this one. Those 3 are the ones that I would say you can actually blend because they're not crazy metallic. And then you have this obviously deeper metallic, but you're gonna work with these 3 to give you depth, right? Then you have this mid-tone shade, which is what I reach for a lot. But other than that, I feel like you have 1, 2, 3 other matte shades that are extremely similar, and they really just don't give you much. Now, of course, if you have a lighter skin tone or something like that, but just looking at these 3, I feel like we could have gotten rid of 2 of them and had some, you know, options in the middle that were more on par with this depth. So I feel like it's lacking in that sense because I was just sort of relying on this shade a lot. This shade also swatches like a charcoal black, but on the eye, at least on me, when you blend it out, I felt like it was going very, very almost like navy. If you've ever had a black liner that when you smudged it, it turned navy, that's kind of how I felt this one was. I did really rely, I think it was on this one to give me the depth without giving me such a blue tint. But overall, I do feel like my look is blue silver. Now this palette is incredibly cool toned. I mean, it is as cool toned as they come. I would say again, like the ColourPop Smoke Show, but just a bigger palette. I do feel like this palette is going to give you relatively the same type of look. So it's kind of one of those that I'm not gonna reach for every day. This would be a palette I would reach for let's say Halloween, which it is that time of year, or let's say New Year's Eve, when I really wanna do something like a Christmas party or something like that. I also will say that if you just love cool tones and grays and blues and icy colors on yourself, this is gonna be your palette. This is definitely not a palette that I would reach for on the day-to-day because for me, really, it's just too cool toned and too icy. But I do feel like we get a lot of brands coming out with, you know, cool toned palettes and they're really not cool. This is cool, so I will give it to her. She brought it with the cool tones. There is no question you will not find any warmth in this palette. Am I gonna reach for it a ton? Probably not. I much prefer her I Need a Nude palette. This is just a color story that is leaning a little bit too special occasion for me personally, but again, it's really up to your preferences and what you like. And I do think depending on your skin tone, your eye color, all of those things, it really will change how this will look on you. But those are my overall thoughts. You guys will have to let me know, what do you think about this look? I would love to know, did you pick it up? Are you passing over it? If you do want to pick it up on her website, you can get 15% off with the code BabsBeauty, so I will have that down below as well. I should have a video coming very soon on another new palette, which is the new Huda Beauty palette. It looks stunning, you guys. I can't even tell you. So I'm so excited about that. Keep your eyes peeled. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next video.